Assalamu alaikum, fam. Hope you're doing fantastic. So, I think that people need to move to America intentionally in order to spread Islam. The reason being is because YouTube is already suppressing just mellow, regular Muslim content, right? And if you think about it, what are the reasons why in the East it's hard for them to build up their economies? Yes, it's because meddling and like foreign affairs, right? Different nations are always trying to control the East for their oil. But it's also, you can't really grow much agriculture there. It's harder to have type of exports that can make your economy good. In America, you have a lot of different things you can do because of the weather and, the type of agriculture. The climate is a bit more favorable, right? So, if Muslims start coming to America and they start living with each other and they start making Muslim-owned businesses, hiring only Muslim, buying from only Muslims, it'll be able to colonize America pretty well. Because America is pretty weak right now. I gotta say, my country is pretty weak. We're going down. We're going down. The fact that we have a reality TV star, Jenner, who has no experience and is a Kardashian and a weak man who became a woman, whatever it is, that just shows how America is weak, because people are going into debt for political science degrees and it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even help you get a job. We don't even look for who has the skills anymore. It's just how famous you are. And that is a true sign of decay, right? So it's time for real men to come. And that's why let me tell you something. I think now that it's good that a lot of migrants are coming from Mexico to America, because a lot of them are traditional men and their women are religious. They're Catholics, most of them. But if we can convince them and explain to them how Jesus isn't God and explain the Islamic version, I think we could do a lot of work at converting them to become Muslim. I really do. So I'm no longer going to argue against you want border security, but I'm not going to freak out like what the Christians are doing, because they seem to think that you can never make a Latino a Republican or a conservative or a Christian, and that they'll automatically just vote Democrat because of welfare programs, which is quite small-brained assumption there, because it just shows how lazy you are to spread your political party and your ideology, that you don't even want to put in work and explain to them about how to open a business or entrepreneurship, or how it's just okay to be poor. I don't know. It just seems kind of lazy, kind of end of the world fear-mongering. But with Islam, if more people can do dawah in Spanish, and you move to California by the border, and you go to Texas, places where the immigrants are going to go first off, and we start going to them and doing dawah to them before the liberal woke tards can get to them to brainwash them with their hedonism, we could do a lot of great work in order to spread Islam. But this will require that we learn Spanish, basic Spanish, and then we all have to learn Arabic, and I have to learn. But that's the second process. The first step, though, is to get them to become interested in Islam. And I think the men will be very receptive to it, because when they get here and they see the type of decay, we need to be able to convince them to not join the cartels, to not join the gangs, and to not let their kids start getting into the degeneracy that California promotes, right? Because that's only going to spread more children with birth defects, more drug addicts, more alcoholics, more narcissism, more materialism, everything that the far left values. I'm not saying that Christians on the Republican side, they can get kind of materialistic too. But Islam is a bit more bare, isn't it? Because you can't have music, you have more restrictions, right? And a lot of these people come from agricultural communities, and they already have kind of a strict lifestyle, so their changing over to Islam won't be that much of a shell shock. So we have to spread Islam in America and then allow it to spread in a way where we also have more of the Latino community coming into the fold. Because it's easier to convince someone who believes in God to come to one God, Allah, than it is to get somebody who thinks that there's 7 different genders, they're addicted to pills and drugs, and they are addicted to partying and care more about their makeup and care more about their fashion. That's a bit harder challenge, a lot more longer process. But with these people showing up, they agree with masculinity, they agree with femininity, they agree with traditional values, and we have to get to them before the communists get to them, because communists historically are an enemy to religion. This has been proven throughout Mao, Stalin. Just read some books on the history of communism and you'll see. You cannot be a good Muslim in an overly communistic society. It's to be very hard, because they have a point that they make about removing religion. Castro, all of them. So the Jacobins did it in France. Just read some history and you'll see my point. But I think it's time that Muslims should purposely try immigrating to America so that they can spread it in person, doing dawah in person, building more schools, spreading Islam, because the Christians, they are letting their children dress very pornographically, right? They are not strict anymore. They bent and bent and bent, and they whine why no one respects them, why everyone makes fun of Jesus, why everyone uses them in memes, and why no one really respects them at all, period. But then they'll say that Muslims are bad because they're more strict and conservative. So it's like Christians have a struggle in America where they hate Muslims because they're more strict and disciplined. They don't even read, most of them, their own faith. They only go to church when it's necessary. They only wear the cross around their neck when someone's died, or as just something they wear. They don't even really think about what that symbolism means. And at the same time, they let their wives dress not even like they're dedicated Christians. You know, no modesty, tits out, skirts, high heels. There's a lot of sexual energy in a lot of these different churches, and it's quite sad. So that ideology is already pretty broken, and it's pretty apparent if you just take a stroll. I think in Utah, I think that's the last religious state. Because if you go to Utah, like my family, a lot of them live in Utah, there's, different rules. Like when I was growing up, people they were not so open with their disobedience. They were more strict, more helpful, more respectful, and modest. The kids still wore those funny floral dresses with tights, but it was still modest. But now, if you go to the other states that aren't the red states, you'll see just open decay where, their kids look like bait for pedos, and that's coming, and Christians cannot fight against it. They're so weak. They're just too weak. So that's why Islam has a chance to spread, is because Christianity is pretty much gone. And a lot of the Christians are not educated and are not willing to fight. They're not willing to argue, to do anything, and most of the religious generation in Christianity is old. Like the Jehovah's Witnesses, when I would go to their temples, you would look inside, it was all old people in their 70s. There was no young people, very few young people. And even if I go past the Methodist church, it's mostly old people. Same with the Catholics. Like I can see now they've been closed, right, because Mass is closed, but it's all older generations. So the younger generation is clearly not filling up those institutions. They're mostly going to nightclubs, they're mostly in the streets, it's, shopping, just doing pretty agnostic things. So that's why I think Islam would be just an easy replacement, because if I notice, I see lots of young Muslims. Like online, you see that it's very young men who are very, very religious. Islam has more young members, more than Christianity. And if they came to America, because those Muslim men are masculine, and they can reform these barely Christian girls, right? Teach them modesty, reform them. I mean, come on. And if a Muslim man gets, 2 wives, 3 wives, there you go. I think that's the strategy for Islam. So you can't just stay in your own countries. You have to come here, and you can have the internet, right? Vimeo, Minds, Parler, the different apps. But Google's made it clear that they hate Islam. Those are filled with liberal activists, atheists, who want to erase entirely any form of Islam from the internet. You can see it. They artificially suppress channels. They delete comments. They clearly are targeting the most active members of Islam. So that's why you cannot rely just on, the internet. You got to come here. You got to start moving next to each other and spreading it in person. Because America is weak. See, I think the only reason why people haven't realized how weak America is, like China and Russia, who want to come here and change it, is because we still have the remnants of the cowboy culture. But that's completely gone. That's completely gone. The cowboy rodeo culture is almost completely stamped out. And those men are highly addicted to alcohol. They're killing their own selves. Drinking whiskey, they're not as disciplined anymore. But a Muslim man who prays 5 times a day and has energy and fasts and prays and has consciousness that isn't dependent upon intoxicants, he's going to have way more healthy sperm. He's going to have way more energy. He's going to have more of a pure energy going on around him, like his God consciousness. The men of Islam are already stronger. I think it's like our movies give a fake image of how strong we once were. But most of the people here are crippled by debt, dependent upon pills, filled with mental illness, broken families everywhere. Just no. I mean, they're just completely fractured. And that's why I think it's going to be super easy. Like, if I would have, maybe this is, hindsight is 20/20, right? But personally, if I would have discovered like somebody who was more patriarchal when I was in junior high and high school, like a real scholar type imam, I believe that I would have respected them and listened to them more. But when Mormon men would try to tell me something, they just felt like they were like glazed over eyes, like they're just too soft, and I just didn't respect them because my spirit and my will was very strong. But Muslim men have a strength of iron to them that I've never seen in a Christian man, right? Because Christians have allowed so much decay in their religion, and they dress their daughters like they're not Christians, and they allowed the porn industry to fetishize them. I mean, come on, right? And in fact, that Christians on Thanksgiving have alcohol there. But Islam doesn't allow alcohol, and that means that the men are going to have stronger sperm counts, the women are going to have more healthier wombs. It's going to be better. So come to America. Spread Islam here. If you live in America and you have time to do dawah, sacrifice the material items. Sacrifice it and come here and spread dawah. You may have to live in maybe you can only have 1 car instead of 2 cars, right? Or a house with 3 bedrooms instead of 4 or 5. You know what I mean? But downsize the budget and then use that time that you aren't at work to do dawah here. Set up tables. And I think that if you come to California, the brave, really good people who know how to do dawah, you should go to the hoods and start spreading it there to reform those areas. Because those young girls who are lost, they can be saved. They crave masculine men. And if you go there and you help them get away from the gangbangers, you can reform them. It can happen. If it can happen to me just through the internet, imagine if it would have been done in person. So spread dawah here in person. In New York, it's a little bit harder, But go to one of these cheap states like Ohio, Iowa, Alaska. Think about it. Like Muslims, we could buy us some land in Alaska, pitch in, build a house that has 15 bedrooms. A bunch of us Muslims go in and live there, and we use that as a house where people, when they come over here first, they have a place to live. Like when I lived in these immigrant zones, when you went to go look for a room to rent, you'd go to the laundry rooms, and there would be a sticker that said un cuarto para rentar, utilidades like $50 a month. So it would be like utilities, you pay $50. For the room, it was like $550 to rent the room, right? You'd see the advertisements on the laundry room. So that was like a system that people would use so that if you were new here and you didn't have any established credit to rent an apartment yourself, you could still rent a room and have a place to live. I think that's what we have to do with the Muslim community. You gotta have wealthier Muslims come here, purchase property, use that to have other Muslims come here to live in, and then supplement their income so they can do dawah every single day. And then have a man come here with his 2 wives, they both get pregnant, and then we start spreading out the community, we find a place for them to live, and we take over. Because Christianity is broken, Jews are very few, Buddhists, not even an issue, it's barely any anyways. The main opponents will be the atheists. But they're all addicted to drugs. They love fashion, they love materialism, they're addicted to this world. And if someone's addicted to this world and they love their car more than they do reforming their own soul, I mean, how strong can they be? They're only strong because of tech censorship, right? Think about it. That's how we have to do it. That's how we have to do it. If I had money right now, like if I had $1 million, that's exactly what I'd do. I'd buy an apartment complex. I'd help people figure out their papers to get here, put them in there and say, okay, I will help you pay half your rent, but you got to do dawah this many times a month. And I want to see some proof of your dawah. Videos, set up a booth, get the permits, and do it. Press hard. We have to get organized because think about it. They're wiping you out online. They're wiping us out online. Within the countries themselves, through the bandwidth by, promoting alcoholism and degeneracy. So Muslims have to get organized. You can't just adapt, and allow them to corrupt your religion piece by piece, like what happened to the Christians. If you study the history of Christianity, how weak it became, you can see how they did it. And that's why, I think within 30 years, many places will close. Like Utah, like I said, they have temples everywhere, but every year they lose more and more students. They lose more and more. They can't hold back because of the drugs and porn and the different social media lifestyles. But Islam, we can spread it here because women want masculine men and Islam promotes masculinity. As long as Islam keeps the degeneracy out, it will always spread. No one wants to see an effeminate, soft Muslim dude. I don't know, that'd be disgusting. But a strong masculine man, the women magnate to him because it's natural within us biologically to create babies with a man who can defend us. That's biology. Want to talk about science? That's biology. Few women want a guy who's gonna crawl in the corner and whine and be afraid, like a Jerry from Rick and Morty. There's a reason why those types are made fun of, because no one really wants them. Just somebody who is, I would say, too afraid to lead by example. But I think that'd be a good plan. So you buy property, help others, and then sponsor people to come over. You cannot just depend upon the internet because they're censoring everything, and they can just delete your channel. Doesn't matter if you create endless channels. The algorithms will find just keywords and then wipe you out. So again, people have to sponsor people to come here, buy property, and Muslims should start a network like that. How to move to America. You can't just stay over there in the East. You have to come over here because it's a lot easier than what people realize. There's just a lot of smoke and mirrors and illusionary grandstanding upon the old reputation of America, but America is weaker. And think about it, even these liberal atheist women, they're getting into their 30s, they're going to start to crave babies. You can flip them to join Islam because they don't want to date men who make less money than them. They're getting tired. They realize that they've made a bad exchange. They see a nice, healthy, patriarchal man. They're going to change and leave all that feminist stuff behind. Once their vibrator runs out, once their hand gets too tired from using it themselves, they're going to see. But Muslim men have to keep themselves healthy. Butterfly! And it's a monarch butterfly. They're so rare. I love it when I see them. But that's the plan. Do it. Come to America. I try to do videos every day as a form of something where it gets in your feed, which helps people. But when I get more versed, I can set up a booth. But I have to learn more. I have a lot to learn. That's why I need to get around more scholars, but there is none. So I have to rely on the internet. It's a problem. It's a freaking problem, you see? So that's the plan. Do it. Have a good strategy. Come to America. Do dawa.